Let's continue with the chapter. And now let us discuss that how the French society was there during the late 18th century. Students, you know that the French society was divided totally into three different parts, and that was known as estate. The first estate, it comprised the clergy, the church and clergy. The second estate comprised with nobility, and the third estate, it comprised big businessmen, merchants, court officials, lawyers, peasants, artisans, small peasants, landless labor, and servants, etc. Now you can see here that within the third estate, some were rich and some were poor. That's why it has been categorized into three different parts. Now, because of this type of fragmentation in the French society, and the first and second estate people, they were privileged with certain facilities, as they were not to give any tax, and only the tax was imposed on the people of third estate. Now let's see what happened. In 1774, when Louis XVI, he belonged to the Bourbon family, he ascended the throne, means he became the king of France, and he was just, at that time he was just 20 years old, and he married to a Austrian princess, and her name was Marie Antoinette. And upon his succession, when he became the king or monarch of France, he found that the treasury was totally empty. Why it was empty? It was empty because of long years of war, and that drained the financial resource of France. And moreover, because of this war, again the king was to maintain the extravagant court at the immense palace of Versailles. And one more factor was there, that Louis XVI, he helped the 13 American colonies to gain their independence from the common enemy, and that was Britain. So because of that only, the 1 billion livre, it was added in the debt. Earlier, the France was to given $1 billion as a debt, but because of the war, because France helped the 13 colonies, and he was caught in the debt, and 1 more billion was added, and now France was to give 2 billion livre. So the leaders who gave the state credit, means the people who gave this credit, now they began to charge the 10% interest on the loan. The people, the lender who gave this credit to the France government, I mean to say the France monarch, now they started charging 10% interest on loan. So the French government, it was obliged to spend an increasing percentage of its budget on interest payment. Now the government had to give more payment as interest on the debt. Now, as a result, the treasury, it was going empty, or treasury, the money in the treasury, it was decreasing day by day. That is why the king decided to increase more taxes on the people of third estate. The students, we have already decided, we have already discussed, we have already seen that the society of estate, it was divided into three parts, and that was known as estate system. And we have already discussed that the first estate and the second estate, they were privileged, means they were exempted from paying taxes, and it was only third estate who was to pay taxes. Already they were forced to pay taxes, and now king has planned to increase more taxes. Now because of that, the king planned to call up a meeting, of the all estate journals. Now let us see Before that, what was the position, what was the condition of France before that? The society of state, that was a part of feudal system that dated back to the middle ages. Now let us see the term. It was known as old regime. What do you mean by this term, old regime? It means the society, the pattern of society before 1789, the mode of society, the type of society before 1789, that was known as old regime. Now you may see here, we have already seen that this was the pattern of society during 1789 period. And now because of that figure, we have seen that how the system of state in France society, it was organized. Peasants, they were 90% peasants were there, and they were the part of third estate. Only out of all them, only a small number of them, of the peasants were there, or only a small number of people were there who had the land. Otherwise they were peasants, means though they were farmers, but they did not have their own land, they worked to work on others land. That is why they were known as peasants.